Charlie Welsh with Bonnie McLaughlin. The Weather Channel is gearing up for its coverage of the tropical storm Chantal in the Gulf of Mexico. A reminder that at 23 minutes after the hour and at 50 minutes after each hour, a complete report.
There's certainly a lot of information that you'll need to see.
There's a place with
battery-powered equipment, especially radios and flashlights. Keep your car fueled. Service stations may be closed for several days. Be sure you store some drinking water. Your town's water supply may be contaminated by flooding. Secure outdoor objects that might be blown away. Leave mobile homes for more substantial shelter. If instructed, evacuate low-lying areas that may be swept by tidal flooding. Remember, 90% of all hurricane deaths are due to drowning. This hurricane safety tip brought to you courtesy of the Weather.
Texas and Louisiana, and talk to our very own Liz Jarvis. Liz, are you out there?
Yes, Bill, I'm at the Coast Guard station here at Sabine Pass, Texas. We've just found out that they had a meeting earlier today with the city officials from Port Arthur and surrounding communities and emergency management officials, and they have decided to order a mandatory evacuation of Sabine Pass. Now, the mayor would like everyone to leave by midnight tonight, because what is going to happen, what they believe will happen, is that Highway 87, the road that you take out from Port Arthur down here to Sabine Pass, they believe at 2 o'clock this morning that about 2.5 feet of water will be on that road, and by about 4 o'clock this morning, possibly up to 4 feet will be on the road. So that's the mandatory evacuation that we have for you now, is that the mayor would like to see, Mayor Malcolm Clark would like to see all the residents of Sabine Pass leave by midnight tonight.
Okay, Liz, and again, looks like the weather right now fairly cooperative. Light winds and just light rain blowing now, but I'm sure the high tide's coming in later on tonight. And again, the major concern will be the flooding, not only with the tidal waters, but as well with the rainfall. And again, the rainfall will be posing a problem. Have they taken into consider the account of the heavy flooding, a possibility over interior areas?
As you know, Bill, in May and June we had quite a lot of rain in this area, so people are concerned that the streams and the bayous are still very high, so that means any additional rainfall will cause problems. Also, there have been evacuations, or they're urging people to evacuate from Cameron Parish in Louisiana. Now, Steve Angel and I were just up on Highway 82 at Johnson's Bayou, and we traveled around that area. Several of the residents have already boarded up their homes, and they have left because they said in situations like this, the road floods and they get trapped. We talked to Juanita Traham, who is going into Sulphur, where her mother lives. She was taking her family in. We talked to them as they were evacuating just less than an hour ago.
And I'm sure as well all the oil rigs have already been evacuated. Is that correct?
I haven't heard anything about the oil rigs as of yet, but I imagine as time goes on this evening, people will be coming off of there as well, because as you know, the seas are expected maybe 5 to 10 feet above normal, so that will cause a problem situation out there. I do know that Gulf States Utilities Power Company is gearing up for a busy day tomorrow. Of course, there's nothing they can do to prepare for a storm like this. They are just making sure that their equipment is in place so that once we get the high winds tomorrow and we have down power lines, that they will be able to go in as soon as possible as the storm has subsided. They can go in and begin making repairs.
Okay, Liz, thank you very much. And again, we'll be keeping tabs on the situation. The hurricane's still about 180 miles south-southeast of the Galveston area. And once again, we'll have more details on that, as well as another live shot from the Gulf Coast with Liz Jarvis coming up in roughly 1 hour. And we'll have as well tropical updates for you 3 times during the next 45 minutes. Stay tuned for that. We'll have that and more after a look at your local weather.
Good morning. You're watching the Weather Channel. I'm Jill Brown here with Bill Keneely. And as I said, the big story of the day is the first Gulf hurricane of the season. Yeah, and on the heels of all that, we also have a tropical storm in the open water of the Atlantic, Jill. Tropical Storm Dean has formed out there. We'll have to watch that one as the week goes by. But right now,
A hurricane in the Gulf, and it is bearing down on...
Right now on the line we have Liz Jarvis. She's been working her way down the Texas coast from Port Arthur and dealing with some of the brunt of this storm. Liz, are you there?
We've had some heavy rains, and also we've experienced some very gusty winds on the way up here. We were near Jenkins Road on Interstate 10 in South Liberty County, and while we were passing, my photographer Steve Angel and I noticed that the roof shingles of a Stuckey's, the roof shingles were starting to rip off, and the wind just picked them up and took them off, and before we left, the whole roof was virtually gone. The wind was that strong, probably about 60-65 miles coming directly from the east-northeast.
So I guess, Liz, then the biggest problem, at least you've seen on your travels as you headed on down Interstate 10 from Beaumont, Port Arthur area, was that the wind seems to be the biggest problem right now.
Seems to have been, and particularly for that sustained period of time, about 10-15 minutes, I would say, the wind held steady around 60 miles per hour. Since we've left that area and driven further to the west on Interstate 10, we have seen numerous trees that are down, some large trees as well. Of course, a lot of little branches and things are littering the roadways, and some of the utility poles are leaning over toward the road.
What about in terms of, you said there is some water standing on the roadways. Did you have any problem trying to navigate down the coast by the roadways? Any flooded roadways that were impassable as of yet?
Well, as you know, we wanted to do a satellite transmission live feed this morning, but that would have required us to use State Road 82, which was flooded along the coast, so we were separated from the satellite truck that we were going to use. So there has been some coastal flooding, although we did hear a report of Road 87 that was now passable. However, we decided to take the inland route to make sure that we could get over.
The Tropical Update is sponsored by Kodak Batteries. Depend on us to last longer than ever. Here's John.
Thank you very much indeed, Bonnie. Well, Chantal is now inland and it's been downgraded to a tropical storm. No longer a hurricane, but nevertheless still extremely heavy rains in the Houston metropolitan area, and the winds are still gusting up to about 50 miles an hour. Let's put this into motion for you, and we'll examine the motion over the last several hours. We can see it out here before it made landfall, and we see it gradually move up to the northwest. Made landfall a couple of hours ago, and it continues now to move toward the north at about 12 miles an hour. Let's look at this radar picture, and we can put that in motion as well, and we can see circulating around the eye. Now, the eye is pretty well filled up with clouds now. It doesn't show up, but it's not more than about 20-25 miles from downtown Houston, moving toward the northwest. All the Houston stations reporting heavy rain, and several inches of rain have fallen there in just the last few hours. You see where the dark blue is, that's where the rain is very, very heavy indeed. Let's go now and look at the track and look at the particulars, and here they are. And you can see it's been moving toward the northwest, still moves northwest 12 miles an hour. About 25 miles northeast of Houston is where where the eye is right now, gradually getting filled up. We are taking down...
Has been downgraded to a tropical storm. Liz Jarvis has been roaming the northeast Texas coast all morning long, and she's with us now at Port Arthur, Texas. Liz, can you hear us?
Yes, Dale, I can. We've just been notified that the federal employees in Houston and Galveston will be allowed to leave their jobs today at noon today. So within the next 20 minutes or so, they will be able to go home. Of course, the worst problem that everyone fears from the remnants of Hurricane Chantal is, of course, the flooding. We have had some reports of flooding in Harris and Brazoria County, also in Galveston County. Quite a lot of the roads are still partially underwater, particularly along the Gulf Freeway. So it looks like if you have to travel out there, please be careful of the water on the roadways, because as you know, many people lose their lives when they get swept away in their automobiles when they shouldn't be driving over roads that are halfway flooded. As far as we're concerned, though, when we were driving up Interstate 10, we didn't find any flooded patches on that roadway. However, one of the entrance ramps to Interstate 10 that we came by was partially flooded, and people were going slowly through that. However, we did encounter some very strong winds, and I believe we can show you a little bit of what we saw, probably the worst weather that we encountered during our whole trip the past day and a half. That was in South Liberty County along Interstate 10 near Jenkins Road. The roof of a Stuckey's started ripping away with the winds. The winds were gusting to about 65 miles per hour, as I could estimate, and they were coming directly from the east to the northeast. Now, since that time, we were driving a little further west toward Houston. On the way back, ironically and not ironically, expectedly, I should say, the wind shifted, and we were now getting winds from the south as the storm had passed much further to our north. Any questions, Dale?
I was just wondering, Liz, as you had driven, we had heard these reports of flooding and heavy rains and some of the roadways underwater. Anything as you travel a little bit farther to the east in terms of rain? It looks like it's not raining there right now.
No, it's not, but I don't know whether you could tell. Well, just about a minute ago, there were some dark clouds behind me, and we've seen some squall lines coming back. We've been traveling from the outskirts of Houston back toward Port Arthur the past hour, and we've been seeing some patches of light to moderate rain, nothing particularly heavy. However, we did encounter some heavy rains when we were up further to the west toward Houston.
Okay, Liz, well, thanks for that report, and we'll be continuing to cover Chantal and its effects here on the United States. Thanks for being with us, Liz, and we'll continue to cover Gilbert after your hometown forecast.